It started with a jar of salad and a sticky note that read no outside food taped to my Tupperware like it was a biohazard. I'd left it in the communal fridge like I always did. Quinoa, chickpeas, a little feta, and some lemon dressing. Nothing that could incite a riot. But somehow that Tuesday it did. By 10:17 a.m., I was being marched into a conference room by a woman who wore her power like an itchy blazer. No warning, no write-up. Just an HR smile that didn't touch her eyes, and a printed copy of the employee handbook. Highlighted, circled, weaponized. Apparently, my salad violated our catering exclusivity policy. A policy I'd never heard of, probably because it didn't exist until I made the mistake of skipping their oily sandwich trays one too many times. It's about optics, she said, as if my mason jar lunch was somehow sabotaging the quarterly morale metrics. I asked if they were joking. She said they don't joke about compliance. I asked if I could eat my lunch first. She said, you can eat it on the way out, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind to the weeks before they tried to exile me for kale. I've been in ops for 6 years. Not flashy, not loud, but dependable. I'm the woman who remembers what color-coded sticky tabs mean from meetings 4 quarters ago, one who quietly stocks the supply closet because facilities forgot again, the one who double-checks calendars for room conflicts because leadership can't read past Outlook invites. You know that person. I didn't climb the ladder by charming the board during open bars. I just worked, and kept working. Through system crashes, botched vendor invoices, broken coffee machines, and one minor flood caused by someone who thought tap meant push aggressively until water obeys. Lunches were always catered, especially when the C-suite needed to show off to clients. BBQ spreads, sushi buffets, sliders with vegan labels that lied, and I used to partake. But then our team budget got sliced thinner than the deli turkey we stopped ordering. No warning, no meeting. Just a note from finance that ops will no longer be allocated meal coverage during internal sessions. Meanwhile, sales had 3 shrimp towers in 2 weeks, and HR celebrated Thursday Positivity Hour with mimosas and mini quiches. So I started bringing my own food. Nothing dramatic, just stuff I could prep on Sundays and not hate by Wednesday. Some coworkers joked about my Pinterest lunches, but I didn't care. It kept me sane, especially as the vibe around the office shifted into something sticky. HR got weirdly buddy-buddy with the finance team. Policies started appearing in Slack with typos and no context. We suddenly needed 2 signatures for supply orders and a headcount verification form for every meeting involving snacks. Someone even tried to ban flavored seltzer in shared spaces because it was distracting. I wish I were kidding. It wasn't paranoia, it was paperwork. I saw the memos. I saw the calendar invites disappear. I saw the way HR started referring to themselves as culture architects and clapped for each other in meetings no one else was invited to. And through all of it, I kept eating my salad, quietly, at my desk, with a plastic fork and 0 crimes committed, until that Tuesday. And hey, quick pause if you're still with me first, bless you. Second, only about 10% of folks who hear these stories actually subscribe. If you enjoy watching workplace justice unfold like a slow-motion train wreck with extra mayo, click that subscribe button and toss a like. It helps the team keep digging up stories like this one. All right, Salad Saga continues. See, I wouldn't have cared if they'd just let me go with a severance and a coupon to Whole Foods. But the way they did it, cold, calculated, public. They made a scene about my damn salad like I was importing contraband quinoa. Email came from HR at 9:04 a.m. Please come to conference room 3B at your earliest convenience. I already knew. You can always tell when the email has that funeral font, center-aligned, serif-heavy, and lacking a soul. They accused me of unauthorized catering. Read that again. Unauthorized catering. As if I ran a black market bistro from under my desk. They had a packet ready. Screenshots. Photos of my lunch labeled non-compliant items. Printed catering policy I'd never seen before, dated 2 days prior. And sitting there in that room, as they recited their lines like dinner theater extras, I knew this wasn't about salad. This was about something rotting just beneath the company's glossy surface. Because 2 weeks earlier, I'd built a spreadsheet. Not because I was trying to play whistleblower, just because I was bored and annoyed. I'd been handling vendor approvals since we lost our admin, and something didn't sit right. Duplicate catering charges. Orders for events that never happened. 30-person headcounts for meetings with 5 attendees. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when a catering invoice shows $2,300 for breakfast burritos and ambience on President's Day, you raise an eyebrow. And I did, quietly. I flagged it, highlighted discrepancies, built a tab for each vendor with cross-reference calendar invites and meeting room bookings. I told myself it was just internal cleanup, a systems audit, but part of me knew I was holding a match. And on the day HR decided to burn me over a salad, I forwarded the file. No subject line, no explanation. Just an attachment sent to one recipient, the new chief compliance officer. He'd started last month, flown in from DC after a minor accounting scandal nearly tanked our quarterly. He didn't know me, I didn't know him, but I knew how to format a spreadsheet that could talk louder than I ever had. Then I stood up, collected my things, walked past the HR desk where someone had already printed my exit paperwork, and ordered a security escort like I was going to throw tahini at the receptionist. I left with my badge, my fork, and my final salad, quinoa, chickpeas, lemon dressing. I didn't say a word, not yet. The lunch budget vanished overnight like someone had hit delete on our entire department's morale. One day we were getting modest boxed lunches during quarterly huddles, turkey wraps, sad baby carrots, a cookie if you were lucky. The next, a curt slack from finance. Ops will no longer receive meal reimbursement for internal gatherings, effective immediately. No meeting, no reason, just silence. The lonely spreadsheet cell where catering ops used to live. I wasn't even mad at first. We've had cuts before. We adapt, we hustle. That's the ops way, make it work with less and smile while doing it. But then the weird started happening. HR pushed out a new food policy buried inside an update called Culture Standards 2.0. Apparently, no external food was allowed at any company-sanctioned events. That meant if you brought a cake for Susan's birthday, you needed a signature. If you offered someone a slice of homemade zucchini bread in a break room, it counted as unauthorized distribution. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm not. I got CC'd on an incident report where a guy in IT brought samosas to celebrate his citizenship and got a verbal reprimand. For samosas, that he bought with his own money, for a team of 6. It was like food became the new battleground, but only for some of us. See, while we were getting policed for trail mix, HR's own Slack channel was full of cake photos, inside jokes, and selfies with catered spreads that looked suspiciously off policy. One Friday, they posted a boomerang of Taco Bar Friday with a caption that read, "Teamwork tastes better with queso." Meanwhile, I'd just been told to refrain from bringing in outside dressings that create strong odors. The pettiness didn't end there. 2 weeks after the policy dropped, he had a little birthday lunch for Nora, my direct report. Nothing fancy, just a salad bar potluck in the break room. Everyone brought something: cucumbers, olives, boiled eggs. I brought a jar of lemon tahini and some quinoa I made the night before. We sat around, joked about budget cuts, and lit a single sad candle in a fruit cup because we were too scared to bring cake. 3 days later, I got an email titled Compliance Reminder, Food Policies. It wasn't a reminder, it was a formal warning. Attached was a blurry photo of our potluck, complete with annotations. My name circled, my jar labeled non-compliant. A note that said, Ashley distributed homemade food during an unsanctioned gathering in violation of internal catering guidelines. See subsection 3C? Subsection 3C didn't exist. I checked. I didn't reply. I didn't fight. I sat at my desk, looking at that screenshot like it was evidence from a crime I didn't commit. And that's when it clicked, this wasn't just about food, it was about control. Optics, favoritism. Something rotten wearing a smile and a badge lanyard, so I started documenting. Not like a spy, not like a rebel, just like someone who needed to make sense of what the hell was happening. I opened a new tab in my budget tracker and labeled it Vendor Log Crosscheck. I listed every catering invoice from the past 90 days. Then I started pulling calendar invites, comparing scheduled events with billed meals. At first, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe things didn't match up because of reschedules or missing notes. But then I found an invoice for a 35-person breakfast during an off-site day. The room it was allegedly held in had been under construction. That wasn't a clerical error. That was something else. Another event popped up, monthly culture boost lunch. I was on the calendar invite along with 6 other ops people. The invoice said 42 attendees and listed custom sandwich orders, paleo bowls, and infused water service. We'd gotten pre-wrapped turkey and a stack of Dasani bottles. Then there was the signature discrepancy. I recognized my manager's name at the bottom of one approval form, but I knew for a fact she was in Portugal that week. And the signature, a pixel-perfect match to 3 other forms, down to the tilt and spacing, copy-pasted. Each time I found a mismatch, I'd make a note. I wasn't thinking revenge, I wasn't even thinking long-term. I just knew something was off and it felt better to have proof than paranoia. Quiet defense. Just in case. Meanwhile, HR kept tightening the screws. A new form rolled out. Event meal request level 2 approval required. Every department had to submit meal plans 2 weeks in advance. All orders had to go through one approved vendor listed as LLC Priority Catering Services. I'd never heard of them. No website, no reviews, just a Gmail address and a phone number that went straight to voicemail. I emailed finance, asking if we were locked into a sole vendor agreement. They said they'd look into it. That was 2 weeks ago. At lunch one day, I overheard someone from legal mention that our new chief compliance officer was starting next month. Something about a post-audit strategy. That same day, HR posted a celebratory photo. Mimosas again. Caption, cheers to transparency and togetherness. I looked at my jar of homemade couscous and hummus, then back at the photo. Transparency, my ass, so I kept documenting. Quietly, line by line, because if they were going to come for me over a salad, I wanted to know exactly what they were hiding behind the queso. The first real jolt hit during a Tuesday stand-up when Rachel from payroll leaned over, eyes darting toward the HR hallway, and whispered, "They're making examples lately. Quiet ones. Watch your step." It was barely audible over the sound of someone fumbling with the projector, but it landed harder than anything in that morning's update about procurement metrics. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't have to. Just last week, Thomas in marketing disappeared mid-quarter. No goodbye, no handoff doc, just a canceled calendar, and an office stripped bare like he'd never existed. Rumor was he'd flagged some redundant ad spend that had a little too much overlap with the VP's pet agency. 2 weeks later, gone. We were told it was performance-related. Same language they used when the IT analyst vanished after submitting a software compliance report, and when the finance junior stopped showing up after flagging a bonus misallocation. It wasn't a pattern until you looked twice. I looked twice. I started seeing the outlines of something sharp behind every culture initiative and wellness email blast. New poster in the break room. One team, one voice, one vision. Translation? Don't speak unless spoken to. Definitely don't ask why Priority Catering billed us $1,400 for gourmet breakfast bowls at an offsite that got rained out. By Wednesday, I had enough evidence in my spreadsheet to make a decent dent in someone's quarterly bonus. There were over 20 mismatched invoices, 5 confirmed ghost events, and 3 signatures I'd bet my mortgage were copy-pasted. I even had screenshots of internal Slack messages contradicting calendar invites. Tiny breadcrumbs, but together they told a story. A stinky, overcooked, cheese-smothered story. So I opened a draft to the new chief compliance officer. His name was Ian, just started, ex-Fed, quiet guy. Rumors said he was brought in after a string of procurement issues nearly triggered a vendor audit last year. If anyone would care, it'd be him. I wrote the subject line, catering vendor concerns discrepancies documented. Body, hi Ian. I'm an operations team lead and have noticed recurring issues with vendor charges related to internal catering. I've compiled a report attached. Please let me know the best way to share this securely. I sat there staring at it for 10 minutes. Cursor blinking. Attachment icon ready. Then I hovered over the send button. My heart beat like it knew something I didn't. What if he looped HR? What if they dismissed it and flagged me as a problem? What if I got branded like Thomas, erased without ceremony or warning? I didn't have a backup job, no trust fund, no spouse to pick up the slack if rent went unpaid. Just me, a 6-year lease on a Honda Civic and a $17 salad habit. I'd seen how fast they could turn people into ghosts. Even if the data was airtight, the narrative could be twisted in 2 seconds. Ashley's overreacting. Ashley has trouble working cross-functionally. Ashley's not aligned with our evolving culture. One Slack message, one performance note, one vague concern from HR, and I'd be explaining to recruiters why I chose to explore new opportunities after 6 steady years of good reviews and spotless record. I closed the email, clicked move to trash, emptied the bin, and just like that, I chose silence. But silence is noisy when you know things. Every time HR passed my desk, smiling their weaponized smiles, I wondered if they knew I knew. When they laughed too loud near the coffee machine, when their catered lunch trays passed me in the hallway, I wondered if the food tasted better knowing someone else was paying for it. Someone unaware, someone safe. That week I kept my head down, replied to emails quickly, smiled in meetings, said nothing when someone from HR accidentally booked the large conference room we'd reserved and didn't apologize. I told myself it wasn't worth the risk. I had bills, I had goals, I could wait it out. Maybe compliance would find it on their own. Maybe someone else would step forward. I even convinced myself the spreadsheet wasn't a big deal, just a little sloppiness, a few clerical mistakes. Surely no one was intentionally siphoning budget through a ghost vendor, right? But then the potluck policy rolled out. No joke, an actual document titled Unauthorized Food Events and Cultural Risk, as if hummus and pita chips posed an existential threat to morale. The first line read, "Unauthorized meals and gatherings have been shown to disrupt team cohesion and lead to unmanaged interpersonal conflict." The second line named departments known to have previous incidents. My team was listed. In bold, it wasn't about food anymore. It was about power, image, control. And for the first time in 6 years, I realized how precarious my role actually was. I wasn't part of the inner circle. I wasn't protected. I was tolerated, useful, disposable. I stared at the spreadsheet again that night. I didn't add to it. I didn't delete it. I just stared. Then I shut my laptop. Somewhere between fear and fury, I knew the truth. They could erase me in a day. But if I ever decided to fight back, I already had the receipts. The summons came via Slack. HR would like to see you in room 2C. 9:15 sharp. No emoji, no smile. Just corporate coldness dressed as courtesy. My stomach flipped before I even finished reading it. I'd brought lemon quinoa that day, of course I had. Glass jar, olive oil vinaigrette on the side, topped with crumbled feta and sliced cherry tomatoes. The usual, I hadn't shared it, hadn't offered it. Just set it quietly on my desk while finishing up vendor reconciliation notes for a last-minute finance audit. 9:14. I closed my laptop and walked. I didn't take my lunch. Should have known I wouldn't be back in time to eat it. When I opened the door to 2C, both HR leads were already seated, Monica and Brian, a pair I'd come to associate with forced smiles and pre-printed documentation. Monica gestured to the chair across from them like she was hosting a bad game show. "Thanks for coming, Ashley," she said, and I knew it was already decided. She only called you Ashley when you were getting written up or marched out. Brian pushed a stapled packet across the table like it had burned him. My name on top, time-stamped photos of my lunch from the past week, blown-up screenshots of Slack messages. Someone had snitched about the quinoa girl who keeps violating food policy. "This is your third recorded incident regarding non-compliant food," Monica said, like she was reading from a script. "Despite previous warnings, you continue to undermine the company's vendor agreement policy by bringing unauthorized meals into company space." "I didn't cater anything," I replied, voice low but calm. "It was my lunch. From home." "That's irrelevant," she said. "The updated catering policy prohibits all external food in shared workspace. You were made aware. I wasn't, not in writing, not in a way that could have held up in any actual legal context. But that didn't matter. The room wasn't built for defense. It was built for performance, and I was the finale." "We're terminating your employment, effective immediately," Brian added, not meeting my eyes. "Please collect your belongings. Security will escort you out." I blinked just once, then nodded, no begging, no bargaining. If anything, I was relieved. There it was. The moment they finally showed their cards, over a goddamn salad, as I stood. Monica slid a branded tote bag across the table. "For your desk items," she said, like she was doing me a favor. Like this wasn't humiliation dressed up as policy enforcement. I walked out of room 2C with the grace of someone who's seen too many workplace betrayals to be surprised. Back at my desk, I packed in silence. Mug, monitor stand, little ceramic turtle I kept next to my stapler. I wrapped my lunch jar in paper towels. The whole thing took 6 minutes. On the way out, I passed the digital org chart in the main hallway, our company's precious culture tree. My photo had already been removed. The branch where ops lived now had a single placeholder that read, "Vacant." The message was clear: "You don't matter, you never did." I exited through the lobby with a smile so tight my molars ached. A few people glanced up. One offered an awkward wave. No one said a word. Outside, I sat on the edge of the concrete planter near the parking garage, tote on my lap, sun warm on my face. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened my phone, tapped through to my cloud drive, and found the file labeled Vendor Anomalies AWXLSX. Then, without ceremony or subject line, I attached it to an email. To Ian Morrison at Companitimingcom attachment. Vendor Anomalies AWXLSX, no message body. I hit send. I didn't wait for response. Didn't check if it bounced. I just zipped up my coat, stood up, and walked 3 blocks to a cafe where no one knew me. I ordered a coffee, ate my lemon quinoa in peace, and for the first time in 6 years, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. The building buzzed with false optimism, the way it always did before a quarterly all-hands, free-branded notebooks stacked by the elevators, fizzy waters chilling in oversized ice buckets, and HR floating around like party planners for a prom no one asked for. A balloon arch stood in the atrium, because apparently compliance updates now required flair. The internal newsletter called it the celebration of synergy. The rest of us called it Thursday. I wasn't there, obviously. My badge had been deactivated, my parking access revoked, and my name wiped from Slack like I'd died at my desk and no one wanted to deal with the ghost. But my phone, that still rang, that still buzzed. And that morning it started going off like a slot machine. First ping was Nora, my former direct report. "Are you watching the live stream today? Something's off." Then Rachel, new slide in the agenda just added compliance overview. "No one knows what it is. Legal's been pacing." I refreshed the company's public-facing events page, and there it was, quarterly all-hands live stream 12 o'clock p.m. EST. Now featuring Compliance Integrity Update presenter, Ian Morrison, Chief Compliance Officer. Ian, the man I'd emailed my spreadsheet to. No subject line, no commentary, just facts, formulas, flags, the receipts. And now he had the mic. Inside HQ, the mood shifted like the air before a tornado. Small groups gathered around monitors, pretending to care about Q3 revenue while quietly clocking who legal was talking to. The HR floor, usually giddy with pastel cardigans and curated coffee orders, was unusually quiet. Monica's office blinds were closed. Brian's name was dark on Slack. A few execs were seen whispering outside the boardroom, shoulders stiff, smiles strained. The catering trays still arrived on schedule, priority catering, of course. Pulled pork sliders with artisan buns, and a tray of pasta salad slick enough to resurface a driveway. The delivery guy lingered longer than usual, confused about why no one had signed for it. He eventually left the order on the reception table, where it sat like a ticking clock covered in cling wrap. What HR didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that Ian had quietly launched a full vendor audit after receiving that file. Not because of me. Not at first. It was a side project. A routine cleanup, but my spreadsheet had handed him a roadmap. And when he followed the breadcrumbs, it didn't just lead to inflated invoices, they led straight into HR's backyard. The biggest red flag? An invoice for executive brunch 38 attendees billed on Independence Day. A federal holiday. The building had been closed. There were no badge-ins, no room bookings, no staff scheduled. Yet there it was, $2,872.56 paid and cleared. The approval signature? Monica. The vendor? Priority Catering. The LLC? Registered to a man named Daniel Fletcher, who just happened to be Monica's brother-in-law. It wasn't buried deep. It wasn't sophisticated. It was arrogant. And Ian didn't like arrogance. In the hour before the live stream, he'd quietly pulled legal off another task and asked for a second set of eyes. Not on a contract, on a slideshow. One particular slide, dropped in minutes before the upload deadline, just beneath the workplace culture segment. As he reviewed it with the legal team, someone asked, should we give them a heads up? Ian didn't flinch. No, let's let it land cold. The board wasn't informed. Not yet. The CEO was traveling, logged in remotely from a co-working space in Austin, headphones on and oblivious. And HR thought they were about to get a shout-out for Wellness Month. Instead, what they were about to get was a screen share. Outside the building, I sat in a cafe I'd started frequenting since my forced sabbatical. I had my laptop open, earbuds in, coffee slowly cooling beside me. The live stream buffer spun, then loaded. Company logo, elevator music, then a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stream opened on the stage. HR's pastel army was front row, smiling wide, Monica nodding like a woman who expected praise and possibly a LinkedIn feature afterward. Host introduced the agenda. Q3 updates, wins and challenges, culture alignment. Then he handed it off to Ian with an overly chirpy, now to our new chief compliance officer for a quick integrity check-in. Ian walked up to the podium. No smile, no notes, just a clicker and a look that said you should all be sitting down for this. The first slide was titled, Vendor Billing Irregularities, 2021 present. I leaned forward. The chat window on the live stream froze for a second, too many people typing at once. Monica's smile faltered. Ian clicked again. A spreadsheet appeared. Mine, color-coded, time-stamped, annotated. And in the corner of the screen, beneath a bold red box, one line, July 4th, 2023, $2,872.56 executive brunch building closed. A hush fell in the room, even through the screen. I sipped my coffee, steady hands, and waited for the storm to touch down. The meeting began like every other all-hands, a carefully rehearsed lullaby of numbers and praise designed to keep shareholders happy and employees sedated. The CEO, still dialing in from Austin, beamed through a ring light so bright it made his forehead glow like a sermon. Record-breaking quarter, he said. Unprecedented engagement, he added. Let's give a big shout-out to HR for leading the way on our Culture Reimagined initiative. The camera panned to the front row, where Monica sat prim and proud, teeth gleaming under the overheads. She gave a little wave like she'd just been crowned Miss Congeniality. Brian, beside her, smirked. From the stream, it looked like a victory lap. The usual fluff. Words like synergy and alignment were thrown like confetti. Somewhere off-screen, someone clapped a beat too late, and came the shift. And now the CEO said, still grinning, a quick integrity spotlight from our new chief compliance officer. Ian didn't smile. He never did. He walked to the podium like a man headed into surgery, precise, calm, and carrying something sharp. Thank you, he said, one word, cool and clean. Then he clicked the remote. The screen behind him changed. Slide 1, Vendor Billing Irregularities FY21 to present a tidy grid appeared. Spreadsheet, cell borders crisp, color-coded flags, tabs labeled by year, by department, by anomaly severity. In the bottom right, the document footer still read, prepared by A. Whitmore Ops. There was a shift in the room, barely perceptible but real. Shoulders straightened. Phones were slowly lowered. The camera lingered a half-second longer than usual. Ian clicked again. Slide 2, discrepancies by department, bars, numbers, percentages. One line, HR department, stood out like a cracked tooth. It dwarfed the others. Ian finally spoke. Since 2021, we've processed approximately 312 internal catering events across departments. He paused. Of those, 201 were routed through a single vendor, Priority Catering Services, LLC. Another pause, longer. The tension had mass. He continued. This vendor has billed the company over $486,000 during that time frame. An audit was initiated last month after inconsistencies surfaced regarding event headcounts, calendar confirmations, and approval signatures. Then he turned slightly toward the front row, toward Monica. And based on the registration records filed with the state, he said, voice steady, Priority Catering Services, LLC is owned and operated by Daniel Fletcher. Does that name sound familiar? The pause that followed wasn't technical. It was surgical. Monica blinked, and laughed too loud, too shrill. Oh, that's, well, Dan's my brother-in-law, she said. But I'm not involved in his business. It's just he's local. It made sense. Ian didn't nod, didn't blink. And who selected this vendor? Well, I mean, we did HR as part of our culture engagement strategy. But everything was approved by you, Ian interrupted, clicking again. Slide 3, approval signatures cross-referenced every invoice, every signature, each tied to Monica or Brian. Timestamps, event names, some clearly duplicated. A red highlight pulsed over a dozen entries, estimated attendees, 45 actual badge-ins, 7 the chat function in the live stream was disabled, but texts were already flying like hornets behind the scenes. Ian went on, voice flat. We've identified at least 19 events billed during federal holidays. One of them an executive brunch, charged at over $2,800. The building was closed that day. No keycard activity, no calendar invites, yet a signed invoice was submitted. By you. All eyes were now on Monica, who had stopped smiling. Brian shifted in his seat, throat visibly tightening. The pastel unity of the HR team had gone ghostly gray. The CEO's voice cut in over the stream, less polished now. Is legal on standby? He forgot to mute. Ian didn't flinch. And last thing he said, clicking to a final slide. Email records, internal routing, a screenshot of an approval chain showed a Slack thread. Monica, send it through Dan's account again. Finance won't flag it if the head count's over 30. Brian, copy-pasting signature now, gasps. Real ones, audible. Even through the stream's low compression, you could hear the air go still. Ian closed the presentation. This information has been shared with legal, finance, and the board of directors. Further updates will follow as the internal investigation proceeds. He stepped down. No thank you, no smile, just silence behind him and the unmistakable sound of a crumbling empire. The stream cut briefly, then resumed with the CFO trying to pivot back to Q4 strategy. No one cared, and me? I sat at the same cafe, earbuds in, coffee gone cold. I'd never seen a room die in real time before, but now I had, and it was beautiful. Monica tried to laugh, the kind of desperate, brittle sound that cracks more than it soothes. I mean, it's just a coincidence, she said, waving a manicured hand like she was brushing away a bad smell. Dan's company happens to be local, and we needed consistency across offices. That's all this is. A misunderstanding. Ian didn't move, didn't blink. He let the silence stretch just long enough to let her hang herself in it. Then he clicked the remote again. Next slide. Recurring vendor payments bank transfer records, a zoomed-in screenshot of monthly payouts appeared on screen. It wasn't hypothetical. It wasn't vague. This was the smoking wire transfer laid bare. Pay Priority Catering Services LLC amount, $14,000 frequency. Monthly memo, Culture Meals/Priority Catering approved via HR. Every month, like clockwork, rain or shine, brunch or not. There was a faint gasp from somewhere in the front row. One of the newer junior VPs, barely a month into her role, looked like she'd just swallowed a thumbtack. Monica's smile was gone. Brian was looking at his lap like he could disappear into it. One of the HR coordinators reached forward, slowly sliding her company-issued water bottle off the table and into her tote like she wasn't sure she'd be returning to her desk. And then came the voice. Unfiltered, unmuted, straight from the CEO's feed. Get legal on the line. Now, it was low, flat, almost casual, but the weight behind it dropped like a stone. The kind of tone that cleared schedules, ended careers, and triggered NDAs. The room didn't react, not at first. It was as if no one could believe they'd heard it. But then a ripple, like glass cracking under pressure. One exec leaned forward to whisper into their phone. Another pulled out an iPad and began furiously typing. Board members watching remotely went from bored half attention to full-on DEFCON 1 energy. You could almost hear the texts flying. Ian let the slide linger for 5 more seconds before he closed the presentation. The projector screen returned to the company logo, which now felt absurd, like someone spray painting smiley faces on a house fire. Monica made one last effort to recover. Ian, surely this is something we can clarify offline? He cut her off. We'll be contacted by internal audit by end of day. In the meantime, please refrain from accessing any billing systems or vendor management tools. Translation, you're frozen, start packing. For a moment, no one said anything. Even the live stream chat, once frozen, flickered back to life for just a flash before being disabled again by IT. But not before one comment slipped through. So, about that salad policy. I saw it. I laughed out loud. Right there in the cafe, I wasn't alone. My phone lit up with messages from former coworkers. Nora, holy SHT, you watching this? Rachel, you just set off a nuke. Unknown number, respect, that was surgical. Even finance guy Phil, never doubting quinoa again. And then Ian Morrison, subject, thank you. Message, more to come. That file helped a lot. If you're open to it, we should talk soon. I just stared at it for a moment, then minimized the tab. Back on the stream, the CFO was now rambling about restoring trust and enhancing financial transparency. No one was listening. They were all staring at Monica, who sat frozen with her hands clutched in her lap like she was waiting for a judge to call her name. There it was. The end of illusion. No more curated wellness posters. No more team bonding burrito bars. No more memos pretending they didn't know exactly what they were doing. The spreadsheet had done its job, and I hadn't even needed to raise my voice. By 2:30 p.m., the dam broke. It started with a trickle, an email from Nora with the subject line, holy hell. Then Rachel's, you did it, you actually did it. By 3:00 p.m., my inbox looked like a wildfire, 20, then 50, then over 100 unread messages. People I hadn't heard from in years. former coworkers, contractors, even a few VPs who never once looked me in the eye suddenly remembered I existed and were typing fast. Some apologized, others just said thank you. A few asked if I still had that spreadsheet template to share. The best one came from someone in legal who simply wrote, subject that was satisfying. Body, drinks on me if you're ever in DC. But the one that made me pause was from Ian's assistant, Ashley. Ian asked me to reach out. If you're available for contract work, we'd love to bring you in as a compliance operations consultant. Timeline, ASAP. She included a starting hourly rate that made my eyebrows lift. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there in that same cafe, staring out the window while my untouched lunch sat beside me. Arugula, couscous, roasted chickpeas, lemon dressing in a tiny glass jar. Homemade like always. I opened LinkedIn, clicked update status, typed available for projects that value integrity and quinoa, hit post. The likes started rolling in before I even refreshed, and that's when the final email landed. From CEO at Company subject, let's talk body. Ashley, I'd like to discuss everything that's happened. When you're ready, please let me know a good time to connect. I think we owe you more than an apology. Mark, I stared at it for a moment, not with rage, not with satisfaction either. Just stillness. I didn't need to reply yet. He could wait, because for once I wasn't trying to keep up. I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't documenting policies that other people broke while smiling through cake. I was done. Later that night, I sat on my tiny apartment balcony, feet propped on a milk crate I'd turned into a plant stand. I ate my salad straight from the jar. No meetings, no memos, no fake catering invoices to justify someone's brother-in-law's jet ski fund. The wind was soft. The city buzzed far below. Somewhere, I imagined Monica still frozen in her seat, replaying the slide where her empire cracked open. Maybe Brian was deleting Slack messages. Maybe the CEO was drafting apology tweets with his PR team. Maybe the balloon arch was still sagging in the lobby, curling like the end of a party no one wanted to remember. Me. I was chewing chickpeas, thinking about nothing. Not revenge, not justice. Just quiet, and the power of being right eventually. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.